All right, let's do some good for Canton. How about that? Good evening and welcome to the Canton Planning Commission for the 1st of February, 2021. As usual, we like to say the Pledge of Allegiance. If you are near a flag, if not, you can look at mine. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay.
That is a whole lot easier to do when we're live in person.
Yes, it is, without delays, right?
Yeah.
All right. All right, Commissioner Zuber, would you call the roll, please?
Certainly. Commissioner Acharya?
Yes, present.
And don't forget to say where you are.
Yeah, yep. Canton Township, Wayne County, Michigan.
Thank you. Commissioner Eggenberger?
Yes, I am present from Canton Township, Wayne County, Michigan.
And Commissioner Engel is not here. Commissioner Foster?
Yes, good evening from Canton Township, Wayne County, Michigan.
Awesome. And Commissioner Ocon is also not present. Commissioner Singh?
Yes, present from Canton, Wayne County, Michigan.
Awesome. Commissioner Weber?
Present from Canton, Wayne County, Michigan.
Thank you. Commissioner Zuber, present from Canton, Wayne County, Michigan. And Chairman Green.
Present, Canton, Wayne County, Michigan. And hello to everybody. And I don't know if there's any audience yet, Patrick. I don't know if anybody else has joined us, but if so, and for the recording, welcome to anyone who else is listening. Tonight we have one public hearing. And before we get to that, we met last January 4th. So there's minutes associated with that. Do I hear a motion to accept those minutes?
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion.
Second.
By Commissioner Weber and second by...
That was me. That was Zuber for the motion and Weber for the second.
For second, okay, all right. Commissioner Zuber, would you call the vote on that, please?
Certainly. Commissioner Acharya?
Yes.
Commissioner Eggenberger?
Yes.
Commissioner Foster?
Yes.
Commissioner Singh?
Yes.
Commissioner Weber?
Yes.
Commissioner Zuber, yes. And Chairman Green?
That's a yes. All right, again, we have one agenda item. Well, no, actually we have 3 agenda items for the night, right? Or 4. No, 3. Okay, 3 agenda items. Any late additions from staff, Patrick?
No additions to the agenda.
All right, anything from the commission? Hearing none. Commissioner Zuber, will you call the vote on that, please? On accepting the agenda.
I move to accept the agenda.
Second.
Oh, that's right. We didn't have a motion yet. Okay. Okay. All right. We've got a motion by Commissioner Zuber and support by Commissioner Foster. Commissioner Zuber, would you call the vote, please?
Certainly. Commissioner Acharya?
Yes.
Commissioner Eggenberger?
Yes.
Commissioner Foster?
Yes.
Commissioner Singh?
Yes.
Commissioner Weber?
Yes.
Commissioner Zuber, yes. And Chairman Green?
Yes. Okay, that out of the way. Our first public hearing tonight is Pure Development, where we're considering a special land use. This is property located north of Michigan Avenue between Denton Road and Beck Road. Patrick, could you give more detail on this project?
Sure. Just jump over the analysis here. The project sponsor proposes to construct a warehouse and distribution center on 7 contiguous parcels located on the north side of Michigan Avenue between Denton and Beck Road. The proposed warehouse and distribution center will be 183,130 square feet. And the property is currently in the LIR Light Industrial Research Zoning District. 6 of the 7 parcels were recently rezoned to LIR, and the warehouse and distribution facility use is a special land use in that district, so a public hearing is required. In 2018, on the same property, there were 3 large buildings for light research and industrial use that were approved by the township. It was approved on the eastern parcel, and this approval back in 2018 included an exterior material modification approved by the Planning Commission. However, these buildings were never constructed, and the project sponsor for Pure Development proposes to occupy that parcel plus 6 LIR zone parcels to the west. The project sponsor has also applied for site plan review, and tonight the Planning Commission will be reviewing the special land use plans. At a later meeting, the Planning Commission will review the site plan. Typically, staff or the administration of planning and engineering and building and fire, we review industrial site plans internally. However, when industrial site plans are associated with a special land use or there are discretionary decisions, then the Planning Commission and the board review those plans as well. So at a later meeting, if the special land use is recommended for approval, the Planning Commission will see the site plan in a more final form. But for tonight, the site plan version that's the most recent is in the packet for the special land use plans. The size of the site is about 73 acres, and surrounding the site is mostly industrial property for both use and zoning district. However, to the north is residential, and this proposed development is proposed to be south of the drain, so it would be pretty far from residential to the north. There is some adjacent residential to the west, and the zoning ordinance will require a 100-foot setback from the property to the west because it's residential zone for a separation distance. Based on the plans, it looks like that separation distance is close to 200 feet on the west between the western parking lot, and I'll bring the plans up here soon so we can see them. Many of the areas within this 200-foot give or take boundary are preserved wooded areas. The special land use is designed to meet the schedule of regulations in terms of setbacks and lot width and lot area. There are a couple areas of the zoning ordinance where the applicants will be required to apply for variances. And there are some parts of the site that encroach into the 25-foot setback for wetland and drain setbacks. If the special land use is recommended for approval, the applicants will be advised to apply for variances. And then the Zoning Board of Appeals would review those setback encroachments. One of the first things that we look at for the special land use is the traffic impact and access management. There are 4 points of access proposed. One of the points is from an existing boulevard between the Repair Clinic and King Fa. And there are 3 points of access proposed on Michigan Avenue. Of the 3 curb cuts proposed on Michigan Avenue, 1 of the curb cuts is existing and 2 curb cuts are new. Because Michigan Avenue is under the jurisdiction of MDOT, MDOT must review and approve any access points and may require additional conditions. The applicants have submitted a traffic impact study, and the traffic impact study mostly recommends having some dedicated turn lanes and tapering along Michigan Avenue. There is an existing lane on the north side of Michigan Avenue for those lanes and tapers. It would require some repainting. So that's something that the applicant would have to work with MDOT on. The township's traffic engineering consultant, Wade Trim, has reviewed the traffic impact study, and they have recommended approval of the plans and acceptance of the study, subject to review and approval by MDOT of the study and the plans. The next item in our letter is on the parking. Based on the floor area and number of employees, there are 195 parking spaces required. The ordinance allows for a 10% increase above the maximum parking, which would put the maximum number of spaces at 215. There are proposed to be 265 proposed associate spaces and 90 proposed personal van spaces. The zoning ordinance allows the Planning Commission to increase the parking requirements based on the level of current or future traffic. Based on the proposed warehousing and distribution center use for an online retailer, which is the proposed use, the nature of the use will require more parking spaces based on the use of the site. And we often see increases during shift changes where the current employees are parked and the new employees coming in are parked. So when we see those industrial land uses that are employee intense, we're going to see higher levels of traffic. In addition to that, there are several delivery van spaces. There are 966 delivery van spaces proposed. These van spaces are 11 feet wide and 27 feet deep. Because those are fleet vehicles, they're not subject to the maximum number of parking spaces. And these, many of these van parking spaces will have access to an electric vehicle charging station. The next topic that we will look at is loading. The loading area is located on the east side of the building. And this is illustrated on the plans. In front of the front building wall and underneath a canopy on the south side of the building is van loading, where packages being sent out for delivery are transported from the building into a delivery van. Because these spaces are dedicated to delivery vans, the requirements for trucks and trailers don't apply, and the van spaces are smaller than a typical loading space. Additionally, because this van loading is underneath a canopy and the canopy is classified under the definition of building, this van loading area is not located within a yard area. The next major topic that I want to bring up and later on discuss when the plans are up here is the architecture. As I previously noted, at its meeting on March 5th, 2018, the Planning Commission approved exterior building modifications for a previously proposed research building on the site to allow for more preformed concrete panels on the industrial part of the building than the ordinance allowed. At the time of site plan review, the applicants will propose a modification to the building material standard of the zoning ordinance. And this standard specifically requires at least 75% brick on the office portion of the industrial building and not more than 50% concrete panel on the entire building. We have requested additional material details from the applicant regarding the specific materials and the percentages proposed. So we may have some comments tonight about the architecture, but this is something that the applicants will be asking for a modification on when it comes time for site plan review. For the rest of the items in our letter, we've noted areas where there's some compliance and areas where they'll have to revise the plans when they come back for site plan review. And these deal with landscaping and tree preservation, sidewalks, lighting, signage, the dumpster enclosure, and fencing. These are all site plan design elements that we can address at site plan review, but also if there are any questions tonight, we can touch on those. So the last part that I'll mention in our letter is at the bottom of page 4, and that addresses the site or the special land use review standards of section 27.03C of the zoning ordinance. And we find that based on the site design and the elements of the use and what's proposed on the plan, we find that the application meets the special land use standard of section 27.03C. And because of that, our recommendation is for approval of the special land use for the reasons stated in our analysis, subject to the items noted in our review letter being addressed and corrected at the time of site plan review, and that the special land use plans and traffic impact study are subject to approval by Canton Township's transportation engineering consultant and MDOT, including any required upgrades to the site or Michigan Avenue. So that concludes our review letter, and I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Patrick. Is the project sponsor logged in or project representative?
He is. Mr. Richard Ratner has raised his hand. If you'd like, I can open up his mic.
Sure. And before we hear from him, this is a public hearing, so we do need to open up a public hearing.
Move to open the public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, before you do that, I'd like to state something on the record just so everyone's aware.
Go ahead.
I don't know if Mr. Ratner remembers me or not, but his law firm used to work for me, working for Verizon for many years. One of his partners worked, two of his partners actually worked very closely with me, and I know he did some work in that realm as well. But that was, as I said before, I've left Verizon 2 years ago. He was representing Verizon, not me personally. I just wanted to disclose that to everybody in case, so it didn't come as a surprise to anybody. Or I know Patrick has reviewed it with the township attorney, and she's deemed it to not be a conflict, but I wanted to make everyone aware so that no one was blindsided by anything like that.
Well, thank you for volunteering that and bringing that up. Patrick, because of that disclosure, do we need to make any formal motion to accept Commissioner Weber's participation in this proceeding, or is it basically covered?
I think it's basically covered because there's no ongoing professional relationship, and that the professional relationship is more than 2 years old, and Verizon was the client. I think those things, and there's no financial interest by Mr. Weber in this project or with the applicant. So I think the explanation will suffice.
Okay. Thank you very much. And again, thank you very, very much, Doug, for bringing that up. Do I hear a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Support.
All right, I've got a motion by Commissioner Zuber to open the public hearing and support by Commissioner Foster or support for this. Commissioner Zuber, would you call the vote on opening the public hearing?
Certainly. Commissioner Acharya?
Yes.
Commissioner Eggenberger?
Yes.
Commissioner Foster?
Yes.
Commissioner Singh?
Yes.
Commissioner Weber?
Yes.
Commissioner Zuber, yes, and Chairman Green.
Yes, we are open. Okay, Patrick, so if we could hear from the project sponsor, it would be appreciated.
Can you hear me?
Okay, yeah, Mr. Ratner, we can hear you.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Mr. Weber, for bringing that up and making that statement on the record. Patrick has done a terrific job of going over the special land use criteria, and his report, as I've read it, hits everything that we have tried to answer in our letter, which is also in your packet. Much of what was discussed tonight is site plan related, and I would ask the board's indulgence if our architect could address some of the things that Patrick had talked about and make sure that you understand how the site works, and we believe it works very well, and put him on the mic and let him, who is the expert in that area, move forward and give you some more expert advice on that site plan for the questions you probably have.
Okay, I think the commission would welcome that input.
Thank you. Josh Mannion is his name. Is Josh, Patrick, is Josh raised his hand?
Yeah, I see Mr. Mannion here, and I will open that up. So Mr. Mannion, you're able to speak now?
Yes, I'm able to speak now. Good evening, everyone. I'm Josh Manning. I'm actually the civil engineer working on this project, just to make that clear. I'm not the architect, I'm the civil engineer. So I can talk to site design related components, a little bit on architecture from what I know of it, and our architect may be joining us. He had another meeting actually this evening as well at the same time. So if he gets off that other one, he may join us as well. But I can, I guess what I think would be helpful is I can talk through just a little bit operations on the site of how it would function, just so everyone can have a good understanding of the use and how the site will function. So Patrick, are you able to pull up on your screen one of those drawings, maybe the overall, yep, start with that one right there, that'd be perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe if you can make that full screen, that'd be a little
sure
easier to see. So you can see, as Patrick mentioned, the site has access from 4 different drives. There's the business park on the east by the repair clinic. Then there are 3 drives on Michigan Avenue. One on the east that's by the truck dock side of the building, one in the center that's existing, and then a new one on the far west side. So just sort of take you through a day in the life of the operations here. Overnight, typically between 10 p.m. and 8 a.m. is when semis will come drop off packages, and they will come to the truck dock on the far east side, accessing from that far east driveway. And there's any day is around mid 20s to 30 trailers that will come in that overnight period to drop off packages. Once those packages are dropped off, employees inside the building during those overnight hours will be sorting the packages inside. It's a large sort of open sorting with conveyors and such inside the building for aiding in the sorting of packages into individual delivery routes. Then come morning time, there will be people that come, the delivery drivers that drive vans, they will come to the site with their personal vehicle, and they will park the personal vehicle and pick up a van, and the van would be parked in one of those blue shaded parking spaces. Once they have their van, they will enter sort of following that path of that green line following through on both the north and the south side of the building. And they will park under that canopy that Patrick mentioned and get their packages loaded up under the covered canopy. And that loading phase, for an individual van, takes 20 to 30 minutes, somewhere in that range. And there's a wave of vans around 80 or so that will be moving through that loading stage about every 20 to 30 minutes. So that in the process, the timing that how that works is typically those van drivers will arrive on the site in the morning around 9:20 and start circulating the through and getting loaded up soon after that. And then they will begin to leave the site about 9:50, and that goes until 11:30 in the morning, depending on how many packages, how many routes there are for the day. So the timing of that sort of is beneficial for both the business operations and the road network for having that traffic leave the site with the delivery vehicles after the traditional morning rush peak hours. And then those delivery routes will occur throughout the day, and they'll come back to the site around between 7 and 9 at night, drop off their delivery van and pick up their personal vehicle, and then head home for the evening. One other spot I didn't mention, that parking area on the west side, that is for the employees, the associates and managers working inside the facility doing the sorting and whatnot. So that parking area is more your traditional car size stall. So the one thing I want to mention architecturally is the building has, like I said, canopies on both sides that are about 14 feet tall. And the building is constructed of tilt-up concrete painted panels. And the building is about 42 feet high to the parapet, and that canopy is 14 feet tall. And it runs almost the entire length, both sides of the building. So really the aesthetic is broken up on the north and south side with that canopy. And then the west side is where the employee entrance is. It's more the office side on the west side of the building. So that has some metal paneling to break up that side. And then the east side is the truck dock. So that's fairly functional, typical truck dock appearance. And I think, Patrick, if you want to flip, there's a little rendering on one of those pages, maybe the next one there, if you don't mind. So this just gives you a little graphic. This is on the office side of the building, that rendering up there showing the canopy to the left side, and then the office entry. That would be the west side of the building there. So see if there's anything else I wanted to mention here. The business operations is a 24/7 operation. Like as I mentioned, the trucks unloading overnight, and then it is operational throughout the day. That is, I think, the main list of points I wanted to go over. And a lot of what Patrick mentioned as well is related to the site plan, and we continuing to work with Patrick and staff to work through the site plan review comments, and look forward to getting those finalized and submitted back to you. So here for questions.
Okay, thank you very much for that input. I'm going to start it off because just in hearing you, some things came up. The van parking area that's way to the west, I'm going to assume that this is mainly overnight storage type parking where the vans are not being used for deliveries and they're just waiting for the next day's shipments. Is that correct?
That is correct. That blue parking it's van storage. Those will be parked there overnight, and then they will be out for the day.
Okay,
those spaces,
so,
yep. And that's also where van drivers will park their personal vehicles as well.
Okay, so my first question will be in terms of, and this would be site plan issues, buffering from view, landscaping, berming, what have you. That's all been in consideration to basically shield that from view from Michigan Avenue?
That is correct. It's a little hard to see on that drawing right there. Maybe the rendering, the colored rendering, might be helpful to Patrick pull up. But we do have a 4-foot high berm that is planned along Michigan Avenue with screening there.
Okay.
So that entire frontage has a 4-foot high berm, and the west side we have the wooded area that we're maintaining as much of it as we can, and sort of the pinch point. There's a little dimension up there. It's 195 feet at the narrowest between the proposed van parking lot and the residential parcel line over there. Like I said, we're maintaining most of the woods in there, and then still adding more landscape screening with trees and shrubs in that zone as well.
Okay, all right. Sounds like you got that underhand. The building itself is very large. Height-wise, what are we talking?
The overall height of the building is 42 feet to the top of the parapet.
Okay, and are the parapets sufficient enough to screen all of the rooftop units that will be needed for the mechanical?
They
on the roof? Okay.
Yeah, yep. We had our architect do an analysis on that to confirm. Yep, they will be high enough to screen the rooftop mechanical equipment.
Okay, and then lastly, and again, this is something that Patrick had mentioned. MDOT is going to have to get involved with the placement of the 3 driveways from Michigan Avenue. I noticed one is directly across. It looks like it's graphically shown directly across from a turnaround, Michigan Avenue turnaround. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I'm assuming that analysis will determine whether that's a feasible location.
Yeah, and that location specifically is one where there's currently a curb cut, and it's actually a little bit larger curb cut as if it was master planned at some point to have that be a primary entrance. So, yep.
Wow. Okay. All right. That's all that I have. Anyone else from the commission? Let's start. Why don't we go with Commissioner Zuber?
Yeah, is this a facility where if I need to return something to this major online retailer, I can drop a package off?
That I can't confirm for sure on that. If that's part of the program here, it occasionally is with our client. I can't say with certainty at this point, though.
Okay. I thought I saw something about it in some of the materials that I reviewed, but there's so much here that I don't know where it was. because I was going to ask how the public would transfer through, but we can talk about that when we do the site plan approval.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any, at least location identified as public parking.
Yeah.
On this.
Yeah.
So.
And if that is part of the program here, there would be spaces with specific signage for customers, just to be clear for site plan review.
I agree about well, I have concerns about traffic on Michigan Ave, and I did not find the traffic study easy reading. But I'm glad that Wayne County might consider putting in right turn lanes, dedicated right turn lanes, because I feel like they're really missing on Michigan Avenue in many places where people slow down from 55 to 25 to make a right turn into Target, and there's a specific sign that says don't drive on the shoulder. So anyway, hopefully that will help solve some of the issues.
Is that all you had?
That is all I had.
Okay.
I think this will be a really nice facility I have in Canton.
Commissioner Acharya.
Hi, yes. This probably is a question for Patrick. I was just wondering whether there was any variances with the 100 feet setback to the residential area.
There won't be a setback variance application for that one. And I'm going to bring up the landscape plans, and I'm going to zoom in on that area in question. So on the west side of the site here, it shows 206 feet from the lot line to the west to the parking lot. And I think if we draw that perpendicular to the line, I think it was in the 190s, but it's almost 200 feet where 100 feet is required. The only item here where we may see a modification is that for an industrial facility, within that 100-foot setback, there's a 50-foot requirement for a berm. And on that berm, it has to be landscaped. West of this parking lot, it's heavily wooded. And the applicants do propose a number of trees along that perimeter, but they may ask for relief from the berm requirement, because to construct the berm, it would require mass tree removal and grading just to mound up that berm. So that may defeat the purpose. And the requirement is there for the screening, but in this case, we have a heavily wooded area where it does part of the job for us. So I think in that regard, it'll have a better performance than a site that doesn't have trees. So in that sense, they'll be in good shape there in terms of getting more trees in the area and having a larger separation distance.
What's the reason for the berms? What does it do?
The reason for the berm is first to have an embankment to give a little bit of a visual buffer. So with a little bit higher berm, it's a good block, especially from vehicle traffic lights. Usually if the berm, it might not be big enough, it won't be big enough to block the building in most cases, but what it does is it will block the appearance of many vehicles and the traffic lights, so you don't get as much light intrusion. And then the berm would have to be heavily landscaped with evergreens, deciduous trees, and ornamental trees that over time, it will provide some screening. It may not be 100%, but it would soften the appearance as well as muffle some of the noise. And in this case, with the probably over 100-foot separation distance that's required, there's an existing wooded area there. And then with what they add there, it should perform better than a berm with no trees existing.
Thank you, Patrick. The only reason that I brought this up was because it's a 24/7 operation, and the variances in the residential area could be a bother if the setback was not considered. So I think I'm okay. Thank you very much.
Sure. and sometimes that 100 feet, not all areas are the same. And one thing to note is that the area that we're concerned about are the areas where there's going to be heavy truck use, and that will be on the east side of the building. So when trucks come in, trucks go out, especially in the middle of the night, that's all going to be concentrated on the east side of the building and far south of the drain where there's no residents. On the west side of the site, these will be the van delivery vehicles where most of that traffic will be between those peak hours of the day. So there should be very little activity at night on the west side of the site.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Patrick. Thank you.
Commissioner Eggenberger?
Yeah, I had some of the same concerns about the residential and making sure that we had kind of enough area there. I'm pleased that they're going to be able to keep some of the current forest that's there. I think that'll help. Hopefully the residents won't feel as much that there's something going in right there in their backyard if we're able to preserve a lot of the trees. So I appreciate getting the information on that, and I'm set.
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up, though, because Patrick did forward to all of us a letter that was sent, and we want to make sure that that's part of the record. That said, Commissioner Weber.
Yes. I guess my question's kind of directed at both Patrick and Mr. Mangan. The truck traffic that'll be coming in, that'll be coming in mostly during the overnight hours, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
I guess, Patrick, how far away is the residential area to the north from where the truck traffic will be coming in?
What I'll do is I will bring up, I'll bring up an aerial photo. And so north of the site is the drain. And so if trucks come out in the boulevard and then we'll go west, so it'll be south of the drain. And if we in the area north of here, much of that is zoned industrial. I think the primary residential area to the north will be a future phase of Woodbridge.
Okay.
So I'll pull a measurement here from the tree line of Woodbridge south to the drain. From Woodbridge to the drain is a little over 1,000 feet. And then all the proposed development for this site plan is south of that drain.
Okay. The reason I ask is I wouldn't want a situation like we've had at IKEA over the years where the truck's coming in late at night, making a lot of noise and all that sort of thing. But if that's that far away, I don't see that as a big problem. My other question, and I assume that drive that the trucks will be coming in is built for the heavy trucks and the volume of the trucks that will be coming in, or will that have to be upgraded at all?
So the existing boulevard drive for the business park, that is going to be used for the vans, for the vans that are leaving from the north side of the building. We're actually doing one of the new curb cuts on Michigan Avenue is where the trucks will be accessing the site from.
Okay. Well, then that'll make imperative then having those right turn lanes, I believe, if you're going to have the trucks coming in directly off Michigan Avenue like that.
Yeah, I would agree with that at all three of those entrances.
Yeah.
Commissioner Zuber brought up a really, really good point. I know myself, traveling west on Michigan Avenue, occasionally, you have to go into Home Depot or, that strip mall that's there. And people are barreling down on you. If you can't get over a lane, you're going to get run down by somebody.
Yeah. And one last question I have: I thought I remembered reading in the paperwork somewhere that there will be charging stations for the vans in here. Am I remembering that correctly, or did I read that somewhere else?
Yeah, I'll clarify that. So right now, the infrastructure is planned to be installed, essentially conduits running to the van parking spots around the perimeter. So all of the delivery vans would be planned for in the future when those vehicles are available. At this point in time, there aren't enough electric vehicles for delivery available on the market to use, but we're planning for the day when that occurs. So we're installing conduits to allow EV charging in the future.
Okay. During peak hours, I'm sorry, I got one more question. During peak hours, approximately how many people will be working at this facility?
So typically there'll be about 168 full-time numbers are best estimate right now for employees working inside the building for most of the year, including associates and managers. Obviously, that doesn't take into account shift overlap or peak seasonality, but that's for most of the year. In addition to that, there's all the delivery van drivers.
And this is a retail related facility, correct? And let me clarify what I mean by that. Will the volume of people here fluctuate by season? Like, will be busier at Christmas time or holiday time when shipments like that are more voluminous?
Yes, we would expect it to increase in how many employees would be at the site during that peak seasonal retail relationship.
And this site plan, I guess maybe this is directed at Patrick. This site plan then would adequately accommodate that extra flow of traffic and volume of people coming in then at that time?
Yeah, it would be expected to. In some cases, they're hard to predict, especially industrial uses, because some are trip intensive, others are storage intensive. But just like with retailers, when we look at retailers, a lot of times we think of what the parking will be like during the peak seasons, and to some degree the traffic as well. So for an online retailer that's doing shipments, or anyone who has their business based on shipments, whether it was the FedEx or UPS, we would be looking at what's going to be the peak traffic during peak delivery times around the holiday season.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I'm good, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Singh.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. I just have one question. I'm glad that you guys are keeping a lot of the woods intact, and a very small portion of that as visible from the aerial pictures has been taken for parking. And I remember, Patrick, you said the required maximum allowed parking spots are 10% more than the minimum requirement, which is like 200 and some. But in this case, they're proposing a lot more parking spots. So I'm just wondering if that is a possibility that we can keep the parking spots to the maximum allowed, thereby keep those woods intact. More woods if it can be.
That would be more a question for the applicant. Some applicants are not as sensitive to parking fluctuations, and others are pretty specific in terms of the parking that they need based on initial employment, future employment, when shifts will change, where they expect the associate parking to be. So that would be a question more of the applicant in terms of what their proposal is.
Yeah, I can speak briefly to that. The parking we do have shown on here is needed for business operations program reasons, both for several things that we've mentioned already here this evening. And one of the things I have not mentioned yet is there's a significant amount of wetlands on this site, and that's really a constraint for how this site was laid out. We're working with Eagle right now through getting the permitting process going. For impacting the wetlands that we are impacting, but also trying to minimize wetlands on the north side that get impacted. So there's several different natural environmental sensitivities that we're working with on this site, woods and trees being a couple of them.
All right. Well, thank you very much. That's the only question.
All right. You're all set. Any further questions from the commission?
Hey, Greg.
Let's, oh, yes, go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to note that I share Commissioner Zuber's concern about traffic along Michigan Avenue. So I'd be interested to see what comes out of that once we have the conversations with MDOT and Wayne County. I also have concerns about the number of trees being removed and wanted to know how many trees are being replaced, but is that something, Patrick, that we'll find out more about when we have the site plan?
The trees, that's something that I think we can try to address now. Okay. This is the landscape plan that the applicants have submitted, and their ratio here, just to boil it down, is based on their analysis. Some of the trees that they remove are exempt, and if they take away the exempt trees that they can cut down, of the regulated trees on a site, an applicant can remove 25% without replacement. And then once they go above 25% for those regulated trees, then the ordinance has the mitigation requirements. So here, the required replacement trees are 96 replacements. And then with the landmark trees that they're cutting down, they would have mitigation for 210 trees. So we would be looking at replanting of 306 trees. And we're still working with the applicant on fine tuning that tree survey to identify the species and sizes that would be subject to those requirements.
Okay, thank you. And Commissioner Weber asked the question that I had about employees, so thank you.
Okay, Patrick, one quick question in terms of the open area. I know we always require a minimum of 25%. I'm going to assume that this meets that. This preliminary plan meets the at least 25% open area.
It would. There are several areas of the site that are undeveloped. And the 25% open area, it's definitely a requirement of plan developments, and definitely a requirement in the central business district. For the light industrial research, I don't know specifically what the open space areas are, but the acreage of the site is about 73 acres, and there's a large part of the site on the west side. This is about as big of a site analysis I can get. And we have a large area in the northwest portion of the site that's going to be undeveloped. So just by the appearance of it, it looks like far more than 25%. In addition, there's going to be these pockets of landscaping along both the frontage, the parking lot, and some of these interior green spaces.
Okay, I didn't know that you counted those. Okay. All right.
Mr.
Anything
Chairman,
else?
I have a follow-up sort of related to that. Where is the wetland area that everyone's talking about here, Patrick?
Looks like it's to the north mostly.
Is it all to the north, or is there?
Yeah, so on the west side of the site, north of the parking lot, there's some existing wetlands and floodplain. And
I see one listed on the east.
Yeah,
there seems to be one listed on the east. It doesn't say regulated wetland, it just says wetland.
Yeah, there's one existing wetland here that's proposed to remain on the east. And then this east-west drive from the boulevard to the site, that is within the 25-foot setback of the drain setback. So that's one of the items that they'll be applying for a variance. And then in the middle of the site, there are some existing wetland areas that an eagle permit will be required where the building is proposed, where there's going to be some wetland filling.
Mm-hmm.
Some areas outside of that where they'll remain.
given where the detention area is proposed, I presume then that because there is a lot of hard surface associated with this development, the area of the detention is considered adequate for the runoff that'll come off this very large parking lot and that sort of thing into the wetland?
When the site plan is reviewed, the township engineer reviews the stormwater plans and provides preliminary comments in terms of calculations, feasibility, as well as our understanding of the county requirements. But the stormwater system will be under the jurisdiction of Wayne County. So the applicants will be required to get county approval of the plans and the stormwater system.
I'm just thinking there's going to be a lot of water coming off that parking lot. Okay. I'm satisfied, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, very, very good. I think we still need to close the public hearing.
Did anyone from the audience want to speak?
There's been no public.
Oh, that's true. Yes, when I can't see everybody. Patrick, do we have anyone from the audience with a hand raised?
Looking at the attendees, it looks like there is nobody in the audience with their hand raised. We have several people in the audience, some of which represent the petitioner, and others I don't recognize the names, but I don't see anybody in the audience with a hand raised.
Mr. Chairman, I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Zuber to close the public hearing and support by Commissioner Weber. Commissioner Zuber, would you call the vote on that, please?
Sure. Commissioner Acharya?
Yes.
Commissioner Eggenberger?
Yes.
Commissioner Foster?
Yes.
Commissioner Singh?
Yes.
Commissioner Weber?
Yes.
Commissioner Zuber, yes. And Chairman Green?
That's a yes. Okay, so the public hearing is closed. Any other comments, concerns, anything at all? If not, I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to recommend approval of the special land use for a warehousing and materials distribution center on said parcels as the request meets the special land use criteria of the Canton Township zoning ordinance pursuant to the information and plans provided, subject to specific design criteria to be addressed and corrected at the time of site plan review, and that special land use plans and traffic impact study are subject to approval by Canton Township's transportation engineering consultant and MDOT, including any required upgrades to the site or Michigan Ave.
Do I hear support?
Support.
All right, we've got a motion by Commissioner Zuber and support by Commissioner Foster. Any further discussion?
One question, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
And I guess this is to Patrick. Should any conditions about getting the appropriate Eagle permits or any permits necessary from Wayne County be associated with this motion, or should that go when we do site plan review?
That one will go when we have the site plan. Typically with this site plan, it'll be subject to all local, state, and county permits. In some cases, federal permits. But yeah, that'll be kind of a catch-all then. And by that point, the engineer may have some specifics in terms of any requirements that may be that we might have to pay attention to.
Okay, thank you.
All right. With that said, Commissioner Zuber, would you call the vote on this motion, please?
Certainly. Commissioner Acharya?
Yes.
Commissioner Eggenberger?
Yes.
Commissioner Foster?
Yes.
Commissioner Singh?
Yes.
Commissioner Weber?
Yes.
Commissioner Zuber, yes. And Chairman Green?
Yes. Okay, so that passes from us. Patrick, so they now must go before the township board with the same petition?
That's correct. The recommendation from the Planning Commission will go to the Board of Trustees, and the Board of Trustees will take action, final action on the special land use.
Okay, so we won't see it again until that happens, and then that would be a site plan review.
Yep, most likely at the March meeting.
Okay. All right. All right. Let's move along. We have new business of the 2020 annual report. I'm assuming there's nothing much for us to do other than to review. It looks like the staff has done a credible job of putting it all together in the different categories. Is that just there for us to discuss, or do we have to pass any kind of motion on that?
If the Planning Commission finds it acceptable, then the Planning Commission can make a motion to send it to the Township Board.
I would like to move that we send the report to the Township Board.
Support.
Who supported that?
Chandru Acharya.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. I wasn't paying attention. All right. We have a motion to accept that annual report by Commissioner Zuber and support by Commissioner Acharya. Commissioner Zuber, would you call the vote on that, please?
Certainly. Commissioner Acharya?
Yes.
Commissioner Eggenberger?
Yes.
Commissioner Foster?
Yes.
Commissioner Singh?
Yes.
Commissioner Weber?
Yes.
Commissioner Zuber, yes. And Chairman Green?
It's a yes. Fine job on that, Patrick. Okay, yeah. So our third agenda item is the election of officers. I am going to suggest that we put this off for another month, being that we have two of our commissioners not here. I don't know how everybody else feels about that, but
I think that's a good idea.
Is that pretty much the consensus to wait another month on the election of officers?
Is there a reason we would have to do it now, Patrick?
No, the Planning Commission bylaws just state at the February meeting, there's the election of officers. So it's on the agenda and the Planning Commission can take action to defer it a month.
So is that basically a tabling motion?
I move to table the election of officers till next month. Sorry.
Maybe this is just an attempt by the chairman to not vacate his office.
He loves the power. It goes to his head.
Or maybe just to be fair for two people that might, I don't know, might want to take a new role.
No, I'm just joking.
Yeah. Yep, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Okay, so we have a motion. I didn't say who seconded that.
I did. Singh.
Oh, okay. We got a motion by Commissioner Zuber and support by Commissioner Singh to table the election of officers for another month. Commissioner Zuber, would you call the vote on that, please?
Sure. Commissioner Acharya?
Yes.
Commissioner Eggenberger?
Yes.
Commissioner Foster?
Yes.
Commissioner Singh?
Yes.
Commissioner Weber?
Yes.
Commissioner Zuber, yes. And Chairman Green?
Yes. Okay. We have new business to send to staff. 3 projects: Havens Orthodontics, Clover Communities, and Shannon Frank Daycare. Do I hear a motion to send those to staff?
So moved.
Second.
All right, got a motion by Commissioner Zuber and support by Commissioner Weber. I keep wanting to say all in favor, say aye. I have to catch myself. Commissioner Zuber, would you call the vote, please?
Sure. Commissioner Acharya?
Yes.
Commissioner Eggenberger?
Yes.
Commissioner Foster?
Yes.
Commissioner Singh?
Yes.
Commissioner Weber?
Yes.
Commissioner Zuber, yes. And Chairman Green?
Yes. And we have a public hearing for March 1st to set. Canton Crossings, Barbette on Ford Road, Clover Communities, and Shannon Frank Daycare. Do I hear a motion to set that public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All right, got a motion by Commissioner Zuber and support by Commissioner Weber. Commissioner Zuber, would you call the vote on that, please?
Sure. Commissioner Acharya?
Yes.
Commissioner Eggenberger?
Yes.
Commissioner Foster?
Yes.
Commissioner Weber, or I'm sorry, Commissioner Singh?
Yes.
Commissioner Weber?
Yes.
Commissioner Zuber, yes. And Chairman Green?
Yeah, it's a yes. And before we adjourn, I'm gonna ask the obvious elephant in the room to Patrick. What is going on with Chick-fil-A? Where are they at?
We had a meeting a couple of weeks ago with a Chick-fil-A representative, some of their project representatives, and some of our staff representatives. We had representatives from the planning division, engineering, fire. We had someone from the police department because of some traffic concerns, from the building division, and some other divisions as well. And primarily, our major concern was the circulation and traffic impact. And it's not a typical use where a typical traffic impact study can be done, and we have our consultant review it, and then we bring it to the Planning Commission. This is a use unlike any other drive-through use that I've ever seen in terms of just the sheer number of cars that back up. I've been to the Novi Chick-fil-A on 2 occasions, and most recently in January, which is roughly 6 months after they opened. And from the pickup window to the very end of the drive-through line, I think was somewhere close to 2,000 feet. And this was at 3 p.m. on a Saturday. So I didn't see what it was during lunch or during dinner. But the bottom line is our concerns to Chick-fil-A are that we need to see a traffic plan that shows the expected peak demands and how long that line could be and how that'll be handled. Because if there's no plan for it and it ends up on Ford Road, that's a massive failure for Ford Road, for surrounding businesses, and the list goes on. And the number one issue there is traffic safety, safety of the public. And until we can get some of the traffic impact and circulation questions answered in a satisfactory manner, we're not going to bring it to the Planning Commission for a public hearing until we get answers to a lot of those questions.
I don't know if anyone heard that, but they opened their stores in Northville and Shelby Township last week. And guys on the radio were kind of monitoring what's going on. But at least at the Shelby Township one, and this was at lunchtime, people were waiting in line over an hour to get from the time they got in line to the time they got their food. So I don't know how far that was. I saw a picture of the Northville store and how backed up it was. I told you, Patrick, in my comments, I'm definitely not, I'm all for Chick-fil-A coming to our community, but I just don't like that location. And for these very reasons, I just think it's going to be a problem.
Stacking. I see stacking going all through that business section right in there, and other shop owners just absolutely being livid because their clients cannot get to their stores because of the lineup of cars winding around through that shopping center. I mean, that's all I can envision in there in order to keep them off of Ford Road. And even then, it might be almost impossible to keep them from stacking up on that right-hand turn lane on Ford Road, trying to get into there. It's a nightmare.
I know I asked you, Patrick, but maybe you've heard since. Have they considered any other locations on Ford Road that have more space? I mean, I'm not trying to take, and as I told you, I'm not trying to take business or a potential tenant away from the owner of the property, but it just seems like they need a larger location. And I could think of a couple along Ford Road. I'm sure they want to be close to the freeway, but have they given that any consideration at all?
They may have considered it internally, and sometimes from the role of a planner, sometimes we're 1 or 2 steps behind where an applicant is, because a lot of the market data that they have, it's privately sought and it's proprietary. So a lot of times, especially large corporations, when they're looking for sites, they may have sites picked out before they even become available on the market. So I don't know if Chick-fil-A is making that consideration in terms of looking at other sites. Where we are with that, and because the property owner there is the applicant, we're dealing directly with the applicant. So the questions remain with the applicant of here are our concerns with the traffic. This is what we've observed in other Chick-fil-A's, and it's up to them to try to solve the problem at that location. And if they can't and they come here, they have a very difficult time meeting the standards. But if they can at that site, we need to see it. Or if they can somewhere else because it's a bigger site or they have more stacking area, we'll look at it then. But we do have a number of places in the township that that are large enough and the stacking area is long enough to accommodate something longer. But yeah, the ball's in their court, and we'll see what they come back with.
Okay, go ahead.
No, I just want to make a point about community education. I think this is a really important point for the residents to hear, is that the Planning Commission doesn't put businesses in certain location. Like, we're not in the business of like shuffling businesses around. I've heard a lot of comments, especially in regards to Chick-fil-A. Well, why don't they just move it here? It's not like that's something that we can do, because applicants often have a relationship with property owners, or they are the property owners themselves. So it's not like we're playing chess or checkers. And I think that's something that, as we're out in the community, that I think we should try as much as we can, and not to violate any of the rules, but to tell folks that it's not the role of the Planning Commission or even the Township Board to like kind of play checkers with these businesses or like move them around the township.
Well, my concern is from a commission standpoint, if they are in compliance with zoning, do we have any leeway at all but to just approve their petition? I mean, it's one of those things where we know that from history, from watching them open up in other locales, that it just is not going to work on Ford Road, at least not in that location on Ford Road. Myself, Michigan Avenue is the place they need to be, but that's neither here nor there. They're looking at Ford Road, and I'm thinking, okay, as a commissioner, we can say, well, it's not a great idea, but if they have complied with everything that we require zoning wise, do we have anything at all to say about it?
But I think that's what the issue is here, Mr. Chairman. I don't, and Patrick, you correct me if I'm wrong. I think there's concern that they can't meet everything with regard to zoning, because I think as part of zoning is we have to consider things like traffic and all those sorts of things. So I don't think we can sit here and say they can meet everything. Yeah, they can meet everything by the letter of the law. You're right. Then I don't think we have a choice. But I think that's kind of what we're trying to get to the bottom of here. Do they truly meet everything from a zoning criteria?
And that's what we're working with them on. And the drive-through restaurant, it's a special land use in that district. So they would not only have to meet the black and white criteria of the zoning ordinance in terms of setbacks, et cetera, but they would have to meet some of the discretionary standards of special land use. And some of those deal with impact on adjacent sites, safety, impact on traffic, things of that nature, where we look at them and look at the site, not just within the four corners of the site, but its impact outside of the site as well. And it's been several months since they applied, and we're working with the applicants. We're trying to give them every opportunity. We're trying to give them feedback because if and when this does come for a public hearing with the Planning Commission, we want the application to be complete. We want staff to have looked at everything and all the major issues, so that when it does come to the Planning Commission for review, that we have as much information as we can. So this part of the due process period, it is taking longer in terms of those elements. Okay. But we do want to give them every opportunity to answer those questions.
Okay, all right. Anybody else have anything, not only on that issue, but any other township development issues? Anything going on at all that anybody? Oh, I know what I wanted to ask. What is going on with the nursing home on Ford Road? That petition, just west of Bell Tire, that area, right between Bell Tire and Beck Road.
Yeah, that would be the Monarch Grove site, and that plan development, the preliminary plan development was approved by the Township Board of Trustees. And so the next step for the applicant is to prepare their final plan development plan and potentially their site plan along with that at the same time. The last correspondence that I saw come across from them is within the last week or two, they were trying to reach out to either Wayne County or MDOT on some feedback on their plans with respect to traffic.
Okay, all right, because I know that that's gonna, I know that when we discussed that before, the discussion was, is that going to impact Ford Road? And I think we all agree that it will impact Ford Road to not to the Chick-fil-A standards, but it will be adding traffic along that area right in there, and oh, I just hate to think of that 2-lane being congested more than it is coming into town, but so be it. See what happens there. Anybody have anything else?
I'm glad you brought up the Chick-fil-A question, and I'm glad Commissioner Foster mentioned the fact that really we can't pick winners and losers as a planning commission.
True. That's true. Absolutely.
Can't, and that's totally unfair for us to try to impose any. I
don't think any of us are really. We know that they're gonna win business wise. Okay, wherever they go, they're gonna be popular. But I think I know myself. I feel protective of the township in the sense of if a business doesn't make sense in an area, with Ford Road's reputation and everything that we've had to battle with Ford Road all these years, it just doesn't make sense for us to approve something that we know is going to be a detriment.
Exactly.
I mean, I want to see Chick-fil-A come in myself. I mean, I would be one of their customers. There's no question about that. So it's not that I'm hoping they don't survive or anything like that. I'm just saying, okay, from Canton's standpoint, is this a good fit there? And yeah, I guess that's what we have to get to.
I'd like to clarify something that I'm gathering this is directed at my comments, because don't get me wrong, Chick-fil-A comes or doesn't come, I don't care. I'd like them to, but I'm not trying to. I'm just thinking there are better locations than this location. That's I'm not trying to sell them on any one location.
At you at all.
No.
Conversations that I've seen on social media, like, why don't they move them there? Oh. And
this is the hottest topic in Canton right now.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of community education that needs to be done with residents on that point. That's not something that we as commissioners do.
Right.
Yeah. Right. I get it.
Yeah, we're not kings and queens, and we don't move chess pieces around the board, but we do have a role to play as Canton Township representatives to do the best we can for Canton, given the circumstances. Yeah. So, yeah. All right. Anybody have anything else? Otherwise, I can entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Support.
All right. We got motion and support to adjourn. Commissioner Zuber, will you call the vote, please?
Certainly. Commissioner Acharya?
Yes.
Commissioner Eggenberger?
Yes.
Commissioner Foster?
Yes.
Commissioner Singh?
Yes.
Commissioner Weber?
Yes.
Commissioner Zuber, yes. And Chairman Green?
Yes. And Patrick, thank you so much for preparing this agenda for us tonight. And thank you, everybody, for participating in the meeting.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
See you next month.
Everybody.
Thank you.
All right. Good night now.